Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Jen Den, and today we're going to do a True Crime Corner video. I haven't done one in forever, and I do apologize for that. But before I get into that, I want to welcome you all to the channel if you are new. And if you are returning, welcome back. Please make sure you hit the like button if you like the video. So, I do want to apologize. I know a lot of you are kind of wondering where I've been and why I haven't done a True Crime Corner video in a while, and I apologize. I've been trying to study for a test for my job, and I have to take a portion of it, and then the first part, the big portion of it, the state part I took, but the other part I have to take over again. So, between that and life in general, it's been kind of crazy around here. So, and internet issues and so forth, and life just getting in the way. So, I did not forget about true crime. I did not, and I'm not going to stop them. I just, like I said, life got in the way. So, we're going to be working on Nefertiti from Diamond Art Club. And while we talk about the case that we're going to be talking about today, and let me tell you something. I am a true crime buff, and you guys know that. And, well, this is one person, one I've never heard of until recently. And, of course, my daughter looked at me like I'd lost my mind because she's the one that picked this case out. And she was like, Mom, how do you not know who this person is? And I just looked at her and I was like, I don't. So it's kind of like, there was two different colors on my tray, sorry. It was kind of like, how did I not know who this person is? And the case that we're going to talk about today is H.H. Holmes. Now, like I said, I did not know who this person was. I've never, heard of him. I'm totally clueless when it comes to that. So, yeah, you guys, forgive me. I had no clue who this person was. It was kind of like, oh, you don't know who he is. And I had no clue. I really, truly did not. I was like, oh, my gosh, how do I not know who he is? He's considered the first American serial killer, but not only that, he was also a con artist and a trigamist, whatever the heck that is. Yeah, however I pronounce that. I don't know if I pronounced it right, so bear with me. Which means is he was married to 3 women. Okay? Strange. I know. Weird. But then again, there are people that are polygamous, and I never heard of it. I was like, oh my gosh. So we're going to get into this, and I apologize, I'm rambling. It's been a while since I've done a True Crime Corner video. I apologize. Now, usually I do a voiceover, but today my program that I use to do the voiceover isn't working. So we're going to try it without the voiceover, and if it doesn't work, then, I will get my program to work, and we'll do voiceovers from now on. Okay, so H.H. Holmes, who was otherwise known as Herman Webster Mudgett. Yeah. He was born May 16th, 1861. And he was active from December 1891 to November 1894. He did confess to 27 murders, but some of those people were verifiably still alive. So, he's confessing to people that, he didn't kill. And they were never killed. So, okay. Now, but the funny thing about all this is that he was only convicted and sentenced for one murder. And that was his accomplice and his business partner, Benjamin Pitzel. And now I'm going to get to what this mixed use building is and later on, but that's where they were killed, in this building. And it was basically called the Murder Castle. I know, right? Now, I'm going to get into a little bit of its history, and I'm not going to, kind of stay on that too long because, yeah, it's a long, drawn-out thing. I mean, it's a long history. I'm just going to go over some of the highlights and, kind of skip over some of the boring parts of it. But he does become a doctor, and now he was born in Gillimonton, New Hampshire. So he was the youngest of three children, and he had a brother and a sister, or excuse me, four children. Yeah, and he lived there. His parents were Methodists, and there were signs. There were rumors, but they were never proved. There were signs that he was already starting to show, these signs of, what modern day serial killers, the signs would be where, animals were, tortured and killed and so forth. So they didn't have any proof of that. And so then when he turned 16, he graduates the Phillips Exeter Academy. And he starts taking teaching jobs. And he around Gillimonton, and then eventually in Alton, New Hampshire. And then, bear with me a minute. And then, sorry, my wax is, or I'm having problems this morning. Sorry. I always seem to have problems every time I get on a video. I don't know why. Why that is. Anyway. So he then, while he's attending while he's a teacher, he marries Claire Loverling in Alton, and they have a child, which is Robert Loverling Mudgett, and he eventually grows up and becomes a public accountant, a certified public accountant in Orlando, Florida. So, for him, yeah. So then, during this time, Holmes enrolls in the University of Vermont in Burlington, and he was dissatisfied with the school, and he leaves a year later. Now, during all of this, while he's, right before he graduates, he becomes, oh, wait a minute, I'm getting ahead of myself. He enrolls, then in 1882, he enrolls in the University of Michigan's Department of Medicine and Surgery. So, he's already got an idea of what, he's going to do with himself. I don't know if that's part of his cover so that people don't know that, he's got this personality, whatever. I don't know. So, he does that. So now, mind you, he does go back to New Hampshire, and he apprentices a under someone called Nahum White, and he's noted for human dissection. Okay, so I mean, if you can't already see the pattern, it's getting a little strange already. So then years later, he's being suspected of murder, but he basically claims that he's just a con artist, and basically that doesn't really nothing really happens. They don't have any kind of proof whatsoever. So now during this, right before Holmes graduates, his wife Clara leaves him, and she takes her son, and they go back to New Hampshire. Yeah. And then he moves to Moores Fork, New York. And then the rumor was spread there that he was seen with a little boy, and excuse me, and the little boy had disappeared. And of course, I guess apparently he was questioned. They asked him, and he, was like, well, the little boy went back home to his family in Massachusetts, and excuse me, and there was no investigation, and Holmes leaves town. Now, so now he ends up in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and he gets a job as a keeper at the Norristown State Hospital, but he quits after a few days. And so now he later takes a position at a drugstore. And while he's working there, a boy dies after taking medicine that was purchased from that drugstore. Okay? Do you see the pattern here? Okay. So now, he denies any involvement, and he leaves. He moves. He goes away. He goes to Chicago. Now, okay. So if you guys can't see the pattern, then, he leaves after, he's being accused of things. So he ends up in Chicago, and he changes his name to Henry Howard Holmes. Now, mind you, he's still going by his original name. He's not changed it beforehand. He's still going by, his original name that he was born and raised with, and he hasn't become Henry Holmes yet until he gets to Chicago. Okay? So, now, after he changes his name, he then, because the reason he changed his name is because he didn't want to be, basically found out by any previous victims of any of his scams. Because remember, he's also a con artist, also. And so, he's going by, Henry Holmes now. And so now we're going to get to him being in Illinois. Okay. So, now, wait a minute. Okay. Mind you, he's still married to Clara. Okay. Okay. Now, there's a lot of different, yeah, he's got it. I was sitting here, this is all confusing. Mind you, he's still married to Clara, and she's in New Hampshire. He gets married to a woman in Denver, Colorado. Yeah. hmm And she has a daughter. Okay. Then he also marries. Um, no, I'm sorry. Okay. Okay. I yeah. I don't know who the third wife is, but anyway. So now like I said, he moved to Chicago. Okay. So um, he comes across a drugstore, and the it's Elizabeth Holton's drugstore. So she gives him a job, and he worked, and he did a good job and so forth, and he eventually bought the store. Okay, so now there are rumors that they disappear. Holton and her husband disappeared, but those rumors were basically not true. They found that he was still they were still alive. So yeah. So anyway, da, 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 da. He purchases an empty lot across from the drugstore, and now the purpose of this is to build his murder castle. Okay, now the murder castle. Let me tell you, this is an interesting description of the building, and I'm going to tell you this is just like I was reading this and I was like, my gosh, it sounds like a dang stupid setting for a horror movie. And believe me, I really I was beginning to have my doubts. I was beginning to have my doubts that I was reading a true crime case because I was like, what in the world? Um, but yeah, it's just oh my gosh, you have no clue. Um, so uh, now like I said, he builds this, and he builds and it becomes a two-story mixed use building. Okay. Now the purpose of this building was supposed to be to have retail space and apartments. Okay. Now, before he could even get, the building, I guess, built all the way to the way he wanted it, his creditors, um, one of his creditors dies in the drugstore. So he declines then to pay the architects because, okay, his creditor dies. I mean, there's, okay, whatever. So they sue him. The architects sue him. So now, it doesn't tell you what happens between that time. So then, um, they sued him in 1888. Then in 1892, he adds a third floor. And he tells the investors and the suppliers that uh, it is going to be a hotel on the third floor that is intended for the World Columbian Exposition. And the hotel portion was never completed. And so then in 1891 or 1892, the hotel was somewhat completed. Now, this is where it gets weird, okay? The first floor was the storefront, okay? There was 3 stories, okay? The first floor being the storefront. Then the second story consisting of his elaborate torture rooms. Now, it doesn't tell you what's in the torture rooms. It just tells you, oh yes, this is what basically it is. Then the third floor was there were more apartment rooms, and these rooms consisted of soundproof rooms. There were soundproof rooms and mazes that led to nowhere. And each room on the second floor and the third floor had chutes, like garbage chutes, that went down to the basement. And in the basement, okay, now this is where it gets really, really creepy, okay? In the basement, he has acid baths, quicklime, and a crematorium where he disposed of his victims' bodies. This is after. Okay, this is before. Okay, this is after he basically dissects them and sells sells the sells his victims' internal organs on the black market. So now the furniture suppliers, find out that that Holmes is hiding some of the furniture. Excuse me. Excuse me. I'm so sorry. Okay. So he's hiding some of the furniture, and they go in and they search, and the investors pull out, and so then in 1894, the police end up doing a search while Holmes is out, and this is when they find the hinge walls, false partitions, rooms linked with secret passages, and they even found airtight rooms that had pipes that were filled with gas. So yeah, this guy wasn't playing around. I mean, this guy, I have to say, out of all of the whatever you want to call them, true crime things that I have read about, Bundy and everything, this guy was out there. I'm telling you, this was just weird. So, they find all this stuff, and what am I doing? So, this guy was just out there, I'm telling you. So, they find medical tools. The hotel was gutted. Now, they arrest him, but the hotel gets gutted by a fire after he gets arrested. And it becomes a post office. Now, they don't know who started the fire. They have no idea. So, it becomes a post office. And then besides him having this, the infamous Myrtle Castle, he has a one-story factory. And which he claimed that he used for glass bending. Now, I don't know what glass bending is. I have no idea. I've never heard of it. And so, I'm kind of, I've never heard of it. Not unless that's how you make, glass. I don't know. So, like I said, this guy is, definitely different. I was like, okay. So, he, they never had any evidence that he used it for glass bending. So, they don't know if that was used for that or for, cremating his victims or whatever. They could never prove anything. Okay, so now, the first murders. Now, I gave you kind of a background. I'm just going by what, is written out here. So now the first murders happened, and I'm going to get into that. So now, uh, one of the early murder victims was his mistress, Julia Smythe, and she was married, and they worked at the jewelry counter of the drugstore that Holmes, was, owned or whatever, and so the husband quit and left his wife and left her and their child Pearl there, and she decided to stay because she was in love with Holmes and so forth. So then in 1891, on Christmas Eve, Julia and Pearl go missing. Now this is what I find interesting. Now remember, he's been a con artist, and he knows how to talk his way out of stuff. So he's they end up missing. Okay, now there's one thing. He tells all his friends that she died during an abortion. Okay, but doesn't say about anything about Pearl, the child. He just says, Julia died during an abortion, and, nothing is said about her daughter at all, whatsoever. Okay? So, then another paramour, or whatever you want to call her, of Holmes is, yeah. She begins working in 1892 in May, and she disappears in December of 1892. Then another woman disappears. Emmeline Sigrid Day, I don't know, but she's the one that disappears in December of 1892. Then another woman vanishes, Edna Van Tassel. And this is what I found interesting, and I did not know this until I was got further down. His main method of murder was suffocation, which included chloroform or exposure to lighting gas fumes, trapped in an airless vault. These were just some of the things that he did. Okay, so then he claimed that he used starvation, burning victims alive. So now he began working in the chemical bank and he became friends with Benjamin Peitzel, and he was a carpenter with a criminal past, and he was exhibiting, a coal bin that he invented. So now he uses them. Holmes, Peitzel becomes Holmes's right hand man, and they um, become, I guess, partners or whatever, I guess, in murdering people, but you don't really, I guess nobody ever really credited Benjamin for it. I don't know. So now there's a woman named Minnie Williams, and she moves to Chicago. And he claims to have met her in an employment office. But there were rumors that, he met her years before in Boston, and that he offered a job as his uh, personal stenographer, and that she had accepted. So, as you can see, he's okay. Da, 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 da. Now he persuades Williams to um, transfer the deed of her property that's in Fort Worth, Texas, to him. Okay, like I said, not only is he a serial killer, he's this con artist. So how he did this, I don't know. But she transfers the deed to Alexander Bond, which is one of Holmes's aliases. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this guy's really, I have to say, he covers his tracks a lot. And he has a lot of aliases, which I did not know he had. And I was like, wow, this guy is just, okay. So she transfers the deed. And, um, then later on, he and, Minnie they start presenting themselves as husband and wife. And they rent an apartment, and Minnie's sister comes to visit in July. And she writes to her aunt that, she planned to accompany, them to Europe, and neither Minnie nor Annie were seen after July 5th of 1893. Okay? Mm-hmm. So this guy, was kind of already prepared for, I guess he already had some kind of an idea of what he was going to do. Okay? I mean, it's obvious. Yeah, this guy's just, a piece of work. So, now he also, so now they capture him. This is his capture and his arrest. So this is where it's going to get interesting. So, the insurance companies, want to pressure him to have him, prosecuted for arson. So Holmes leaves Chicago in 1894, and he goes to Fort Worth, Texas, and where he, this is the property that he had, Minnie Williams sign over, and so, he gets there, and he then once again attempts to build a building without paying his suppliers. Okay. And it wasn't going to be, I think the reason that it never got completed was, because of the lack of money. So it wouldn't have been, his next, whatever, killing site or whatever. But anyway, so then in 1894, the same month, he gets arrested. And he's briefly jailed. And the charge is on selling mortgaged goods in Missouri. And he was promptly bailed out. But while he was in jail, he struck up a conversation with a convicted outlaw, Marion Hedgepeth, who was serving a 25-year sentence. Okay? Now, of course, this can never be good. Holmes concocted a plan to swindle $25,000 from an insurance company swindle them for $10,000. Okay. Then take the policy out on himself and then fake his own death. Okay. Strange, but okay. So, he promised Hedgepeth $500 in exchange for the name of a lawyer that could be trusted. And um, he was directed to an attorney from St. Louis, and uh, so his plan to fake his own death failed, even though, he was directed to this lawyer, and I guess the lawyer set it up and everything. I don't know. But anyway, the plan failed, and the insurance company became suspicious, and they refused to pay. So, he didn't press the claim, and instead, he concocted a similar plan with his right-hand man, Benjamin Pitezel. So he agreed to fake his own death, okay, so that his wife could collect that $10,000, could collect on the insurance policy, which, she split with Holmes. So, okay, she split it with Holmes and with the lawyer. And so the scheme took place, which was supposed to take place in Philadelphia, called for Pitezel to set himself up as an inventor and then be killed and disfigured in the lab explosion. Okay, so now Holmes was supposed to find an appropriate body to play the role of Pitezel. Instead, Holmes killed him. I told you, this guy is a piece of work. Holmes kills him and knocks him unconscious, then sets his body on fire with the use of benzene. Okay. Now, in his confession, Holmes confesses to all this, okay? This is just weird. He confesses to all this, which I'm not saying it's weird that he confesses, but anyway, he confesses that Pitezel was still alive after he used the chloroform on him, before he set him on fire. Now, there is forensic evidence that I guess, was presented to Holmes at his later trial, showing that the chloroform had been administered after Pitezel's death. So he basically lied. Okay. So this was a fact which the insurance company was unaware of, and this was presumably to fake a suicide and to exonerate Holmes should he ever be charged. Okay. Well, of course, as you know, that didn't happen. So Holmes collected the insurance payout, and based on the basis of the corpse, he then went on to manipulate Pitezel's wife, and because she had no clue, into allowing 3 of her 5 children to be placed into his custody. And the eldest daughter and the baby remained with Mrs. Pitezel. Holmes and the 3 children traveled throughout the United States and into Canada. Now, why he wanted them in his custody, I have no clue. I'm still trying to figure that out. It's very confusing. I'm trying to understand that. So now he escorts Mrs. Pitezel along a parallel route, and uses various aliases and lies to her concerning her husband's death, and that he claimed that her husband was hiding in London, and he was lying to her about the true whereabouts of her children. So in Detroit, they were separated by 3 blocks. Um, so, this guy's, a really, really piece of work. I was like, this guy's, wow. So, I missed some up there. Oops. Let's see. Now, he would later confess to murdering 2 of the children. So, he does kill 2 of the children. Now, I don't know if he did it before, while he's lying to, Mrs. Peitzel or what. It doesn't say, but he does confess to that. He says by forcing them into a large trunk and he locked them inside, and he drilled a hole in the trunk and put one end of a hose through the hole, and which he attached to a gas line, and he buried their bodies in the cellar of his rental house in Toronto. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, mind you, that street that the rental house is on does not exist anymore. But yeah. So then a police detective from Philadelphia was assigned to investigate Holmes. And of course, to find the 3 missing children, and he found the 2 he found the 2 Peitzel girls in the Toronto home, and then he went to Indianapolis, where Holmes had rented a cottage. Holmes was reported to have visited the local pharmacy to purchase drugs. Now, of course, he used those to kill the other child, the 3rd child, Howard. So, yeah. The murder spree finally ends, okay, in Boston in 1894. He, been tracked there from Philadelphia. And so, he was arrested by the Pinkertons. He was held on an outstanding warrant for horse theft, of all things. Okay. From Texas. I know, right? He's been killing all these people, and the only thing they could get him on was an outstanding horse warrant. Because the reason being was because they didn't want him to become they became more suspicious, and Holmes appeared to flee, appeared to be ready to just basically leave the country. So, and this was in the company of his 3rd wife. Okay? Now, we don't know who his 3rd wife is because he didn't say. So now, in July of 1895, the police began investigating the murder castle, and they found no evidence which would have convicted him in Chicago. Even though they found all this stuff, like the rooms and everything, they never could find any evidence to prove that he committed any kind of crime there. There wasn't anything there, no blood or anything like that. So, 1895, he was put on trial for the murder of Benjamin Peitzel, and he was found guilty and sentenced to death. So this guy was just a piece of work all around. And he then, after he was convicted, he then confesses to 27 murders. in Chicago, Indianapolis, and Toronto. And he also confessed to murdering people that were still alive. So yeah, this guy just, I don't know what his purpose was. I don't know if he was trying to get attention when he did that. But yeah, he was confessing to people that were still alive. That's just, okay, whatever. So, he gives contradictory accounts of his life. He claims innocence, and then later, he claims he was possessed by the devil, and yeah, this guy is just different. Then he was hanged in May of 1896, and he basically he didn't show any signs of fear, anxiety, depression, or any kind of remorse, I don't think. So, yeah, he was hung, and uh, that's basically all of that. I mean, this is a really, let me tell you, this case was just weird, okay? I mean, there's a lot that I was just sitting here like, this guy's a piece of work. But yeah, he was basically, some of the highlights of this whole thing is he had like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 aliases. Of course, being the first one was his, original name, Herman Webster Mudgett. Then, of course, H.H. Holmes. Then Alexander Bond, America's first serial killer, the Beast of Chicago, Dr. Death, the Devil in the White City, the Torture Doctor, the Archfiend, and then Judson, whatever that meant. So yeah, he did a lot. I was just like, oh my gosh. They're But anyway, that's the end of that case, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope I didn't confuse you all. It was confusing in itself. I was just like, hey, this is just weird. Because it jumped back and forth a little bit, and I was trying to make sure, everybody got all the information and so forth. So, I hope everyone enjoyed the video. And if you have any questions, comments, please feel free to comment below. If you have any suggestions for, true crime cases, please feel free to comment below. Also, don't forget to like or subscribe if you're new and if you like the video. And until then, I hope everyone has a great week, and I will see you all next time.